Hi everyone. What I'm going to be showing in this video is the process that I went through to paint the vent hood that's going to be used on my laser engraver. I've got a lot of video footage that I've taken as I've gone through this process, so parts of it are going to be sped up so you can see me, but what's repetitive action won't make a lot of difference for those who wish to take this on themselves. Now, I want to start by saying my plan A for finishing this wood off was using a stain. And you'll see how there's parts of the mahogany stain that remain on the wood. The problem I had was the mahogany stain dripping onto the other surfaces, and with the state of my legs, I just could not stay ahead of it, and I wasn't going to be able to do a good job of it. So what I did was sanded it back down to 150 grit, and I went up to my local Home Depot to find a different paint finish that I could use. I really wanted something more than a solid coat, and this is because I'm planning to have the laser engraver stream when it's running. I found a really amazing textured faux rock finish that appealed to me, and I wanted to do this. The catch is that the spray paint's expensive. So to save money, what I'm doing is applying a base coat of paint. And this will go on the vent hood so that when the finish is applied, it'll be a lot more full and won't take near the number of spray paint cans to accomplish this. I'm using a foam roller to paint this. The roller's wider than the 2x2 framing wood that I've made the vent hood frame out of. So what I've done is dipped the end of the roller into my little sample can of latex paint, and I've kind of spread this over the area, like the edge that I'm about to paint, and I've just gone and dapped it on and then rolled it back and forth so that's a smooth level. And then I've gone back to check the sides by rolling the sides just in case any drips went down there, just so that I wasn't going to be stressing, making a mess of it and leaving drips everywhere. This is a long handle roller that I'm using, and overall this has worked really well. You can see that I've done a little bit of standing while doing this. The doctors have encouraged me to stand up for 30 minutes a day. I find this really, really hard. It's not easy at all for me. But if I'm doing something instead of just standing, it makes it much easier to focus on the task that I'm doing. The idea behind this is so that my artificial hips won't come loose inside of me, and then I'll have a whole bunch of problems as a result of it. So you'll see that I've just gone around and done the few coats of paint, and it really took the second and some of the third coat to get a really solid base on there and to cover over the mahogany. If I was to do one thing different, what I would have done was started with a foam corner brush, which is kind of like a wedge or maybe the shape of a piece of pizza if you look at it sideways, and done the corners first, and then I would have been rolling over the parts that a roller can reach. It's kind of the same as when you're doing the corners in a home and you're painting near the ceiling where the wall and ceiling intersection is, you typically put that on by brush and then you roll the rest of it to make it look nice. So this worked, and I was very mindful about how much paint was in the roller at any one time. And I just kind of tapped the paint out of the roller just to make sure I wasn't making a mess and leaving drips on the edge where the two edges meet as it was rolling back and forth. So it went okay, and I was happy with it. Now, after that part was done, it was the spray painting that needed to happen next. So to do this, what I wanted to do was use the table outside but not spray paint it. So I took a newspaper and just taped down the various sections to the outdoor table. And that's just 1.5 inch painter's tape that I've used. The idea is that it's wide enough to spread the 2 sheets of paper so there's an overlap. And I didn't find it hard putting this on. I found the spray painting quite hard, if I'm honest with you. And that's just because the bending and leaning that had to happen. So what you're looking at took place over, I think it's 6 days, where someone that's able-bodied could have done it in maybe 8 hours or a day and a half at most. And this was just to give me time to recover and spend some days in bed. So after I got the paper down, what you're supposed to do with this paint finish is a very, very thin first layer. And you'll see my arm moving quickly so that I don't make pools of paint. There was a little bit of a rhythm to this. The rhythm was spray a little, shake the bottle of paint a little, and just go back and forth. So wood will forgive some puddling when you're spray painting, but it works out much, much better to go several thin layers than 2 thick layers. Spray painting is not the same as rolling on paint. And although it doesn't look great, I could see it was going to work out after the first layer of spray paint was on. Then I applied a second, and after 15 minutes or so, I put on the third and the fourth layers. You'll see that I'm wearing safety goggles while doing this, and that's to avoid the bits that provide the texture from getting in my eyes. If I was you, I would also suggest wearing a face mask, and I do regret not doing this. I have one here, I just didn't put it on. I wish I had of. This particular paint smells like paint thinner. It's not a pleasant smell. What I've tried to do when applying the second and to the remainder coats of paint is kind of an overlapping stroke, sort of going in 12 inch sections at a time and just going back and forth. And then what I did was focused on the outside and then the inside. And, for the most part, it turned out. I went back and looked over everything really carefully, and I saw 2 spots where I'd rubbed up against the paint and had flattened and made kind of a paint run out of the textured paint that this produces. So it just meant squirting over top of it, and it was fine. You couldn't tell that I had done this. If I was to do this over again, what I would have done would have been to paint just like a 12-inch or 16-inch end cut of the 2x2 to test it, to check that it's, to check how the paint works, to learn, to try, and then attack my project. I figure I saved about 2 cans of spray paint on this size project by using the latex foundation for this. It made the paint look full immediately, and then it was just a matter of satisfying myself for how much of the textured paint there is. Now, when I read the side of the bottle, what it said was that a clear coat would make this significantly more resilient. It wouldn't flake off from use. And I could see that periodically. I'm going to rub a board against this when I'm loading and unloading the wood from the laser engraver running. So it's worth putting the UV clear coat on it. The UV clear coat amazingly just soaked into the paint, and it's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's kind of like water going into a puddle and then disappearing shortly after a rain. The bottom line is I put the clear coat on everything and focused on the outside, and then for the sections where I could not bend and needed to finish it off, I just did so on the following day. For the clear coat, you need to either apply new coats within 1 hour or after 24 hours. So I wanted to let the clear coat cure and set first before I leaned the vent hood onto its edge and then started painting it. The final thing I want to talk about that I really don't have a picture to share with you is that I used wood filler and putty to touch up the imperfections of this particular project. And the reason I did this was to make the wood level. So 2x2 wood is framing lumber. It's rough cut lumber. So what I did was fancied it up and leveled it off by using the wood filler and ending up with a better product. And all this is so that the streaming of my laser engraver running will look sharp. I get a lot of satisfaction over using my hands. That whole creative process does me a lot of good. And I just want to encourage those of you who are inclined to try and have the will to try, that you do so. And not all of it's going to turn out, but for the most part, more things than not work out that I try. And I would hope the same for you, especially as you develop skills for doing these types of things. I hope you enjoyed seeing my project. You'll see the laser engraver in use in a few weeks from now. Thanks for the time you spent with me today. Bye for now.